Hi guys, welcome to my talk. So what I'm going to talk about, it's not the technical side of IoT attacks and IoT devices. This is more interesting because what we are noticing is that whenever we hear on the news about IoT attacks, the kind of attacks that there are, right? They tend to focus on the theoretical attacks, the kind of attacks that can happen, as opposed to the kind of attacks that are happening. And that's a very, very big distinction, right? Because you can talk theoretically about Barbie dolls being attacked, but yeah, are they actually happening, those attacks? Not really. And we're going to see how. This is the kind of stuff that the media are talking on the news, right? I put that there as a news header because that it has actually been used at the IoT Armageddon. Wow, look at this. This is a real news header from 2017. 5 nightmarish attacks, right? They call it nightmarish, like it's gonna cause you nightmares. That's going to be terrifying. Another one is this is kind of true, right? IoT attacks are getting worse. They are getting worse, but no one's listening. Why? We'll see. This is very, very scary. The 5 worst examples of IoT hacking and vulnerabilities. It's like, wow, lots and lots of very new attacks against amazing kinds of devices. And this is another one. Cyber attacks on the rise, IoT and DDoS, right? The world gonna end very soon. In the actual real life, well, this is another example. This is my favorite example because every time that you see a news header with an exotic device being vulnerable, they always start with cyber or the toaster. Your toaster is going to be attacked. I was like, a toaster? Once I started researching IoT attacks, I started to, okay, maybe everybody has toasters that can be online, right? I have a regular toaster, so I don't know about this. So I started researching, and there's not actually any toaster that can be purchased. This is from CES 2017. So this is a theoretical toaster that I can't find online. I couldn't buy it on Amazon. So my toaster can be attacked, but I can't buy any toaster that can be online. So what's the point, right? This is the kind of thing that we can see, the IoT invasion, how to avoid being hacked by your toaster. Okay, what toaster? Um, Again, every time you see this news header, my toaster hacked the Pentagon. Really? Wow. And can't find any toaster that can get online. This is another one, as I was saying before, the Hello Barbie. Wow, your Barbie doll can be hacked, and the Barbie can spy on your children. Really? I mean, we need to settle this, right? Because these news headers are very terrifying. And I doubt that these IoT devices are really in the plans of any real criminal. Like, we're talking real world hackers, right? So what we did is try to look at this is the reality. Somebody using Mirai botnets to shut down countries. That makes sense. Now we can see that. What does Mirai work on? Does it work on Barbie dolls or on toasters? No, it works on normal devices, right? Like routers. Routers are the most common device to hack by far. Like, there's not even a comparison. There's some printers that can be hacked and can be monetized, but the monetization plans are really routers, not Barbie dolls, not toasters, not any craziness. And yet we see the news headers going like this: the botnet of smart air conditioners and heaters. Air conditioners or heaters. I mean, who is using that to hack anything? We don't see that we only see it in the news, but we don't see it in real life. Criminals are not using these devices. So what we went and did is try to survey the criminal underground of Russian language, Portuguese. Instead of the Portugal flag, I put there Brazil, because the Portuguese speaking underground is mostly focused on Brazil. Then the English underground, Spanish speaking underground, and Arabic speaking underground. We surveyed those 5 environments, trying to see what the hackers were targeting, what kind of attacks they were planning. And very important, if there is actually a monetization plan, because if there's no monetization plan, what is good for a hacker to hack? Why would you hack something that you can't make any money of? You hack your Barbie and you listen to somebody's kid screaming. What's the point, right? That's not going to happen. From the defense perspective, yeah, you might defend against it. From the attack perspective, why bother? So we wanted to see if there's any monetization plan for those people. And we see the distinction between all of these 5 kinds of undergrounds. So first, let's clarify what is IoT. What do we consider to be IoT? So any device that does not have a normal operating system, a Windows operating system, anything is fair game. So we can see there like dog feeders, printers, air conditioners, that's fair game. All of these kind of devices. We don't consider it to be phones. So phones, in a different environment. We're not going to talk about phones, not servers, not desktops, nothing. This is the kind of thing that we're talking about. So what do we see? What kind of devices do we see being attacked the most? Of course, routers. We're going to talk about the monetization plan first on cameras. Online cameras are very interesting, no? And you think, why would you bother to check on a camera, to look and hack a camera? The camera is very interesting because it's pointing somewhere, right? And that somewhere may be potentially interesting for other hackers to look at. Why? You can see number one, for perverts. Very, very easy. All these cameras that have like that's a beauty salon. At some point, somebody is going to show something there, right? And you can see that it's wide open in the internet. There's the IP. Don't try the IP. It doesn't work anymore. But that IP at some point had that password and that username. There you can see the port there. And that's interesting, right? It's interesting. I mean, there's a public who might find it interesting and would potentially buy access to them. What else is interesting? And this is much, much better, right? There's a lot of security cameras on top of payment systems. And this is, you can tell that you can see the card. Whenever somebody inserts the card, you're going to be able to see the card, and you can see the PIN being entered. So that's super interesting, right? That's immediately much more interesting for any criminal. And you can see any warehouse, anything that has a security system. When you're able to monitor the security system, you can see when the guards come in, when the guards go out, what the shifts are like. So if you're planning on robbing a warehouse, having the camera access to all of the warehouse, you can see when the trucks are coming, what kind of material is coming, when the guards are off, you can see everything. So how do you make money out of this? Now you can see this. This is on the PROIDEA side, right? All the changing rooms. I have no idea why a changing room would be on an open webcam, but there's a lot of them. So what the bad guys do is they package all those into channels like Netflix, and then they sell access to them. Like you can see there, right? All of these channels, all of these are cams, like PROIDEA kind of cameras, and then you can see the access. It's 50 rubles. That's very, very common in the Russian underground. And then they accept Visa for payment. Perfect, right? That's one way of monetizing. They do it thematically. So they do the porn channels or the beauty cam channels. They do the ATM channels. There's a variety of different themes that you can pay for. So if you're interested, for instance, in getting and cloning credit cards, you go into one of these channels and then you can get all of that. At the end of the day, all these are either open cams or cams with default passwords. So that's immediately interesting. If you can use a vulnerability to have access to a closed webcam, all the better, right? That's worth a lot more. But these are the cheap ones. You can see that the prices are really, really cheap. 50 rubles is not a lot to access one of these channels. So that's way of monetizing. Another way of monetizing, and now they're talking about routers, which are by far the most popular, is selling SSH tunnels. So they get into your router and then they install a node of a VPN, so that now your router is now an exit node of a VPN. And then these guys, the criminals, go online and then they sell access to your and any other member of that botnet for sale. So you can see there, this guy is selling SSH tunnels, so VPN, that it's sitting on private home routers. They exclusively say that because it's very difficult for ISPs to block this. So they're selling it, and there's a clear monetization plan. So there is a reason for criminals to take over your router and own it, because they can sell access to it through a VPN channel, the VPN channel, yeah. This is another example. SSH tunnels being sold. They're not that expensive. If you look at the prices, they're super cheap. And then they particularly say home or office routers. So this is really good, because if you're a criminal and you go online and buy a VPN that's sitting on somebody's router, then your exit node is that IP, the IP of that router, right? So the police will see that somebody is being attacked or robbed with an IP from a guy in Argentina, who God knows, right? And very difficult to trace. And of course, there's no official VPN logs. So it's very handy for criminals. This is another example. Again, same thing. And it's telling you specifically, they're renting a botnet spot with Mirai, and you can see the speed. And it's also for DDoS. You can tell what the throughput is, so you can even use it for DDoS. By the way, DDoS is very common. So I neglected to say that, but VPN, it's super common. But if you have access to the router, then you can redirect any amount of packets through that node, right? So you can use it as a DDoS channel. So that's why they tell the throughput there. So you can use it as a channel, or you can use it as a VPN. Now, this is a really interesting one that we saw in Brazil. Up until now, very common in the Russian underground. This one is relatively common in the Brazilian underground, in the Portuguese-speaking area. So what they do is they take over your router, and once they have access to the router, they change the DNS, right? So then people behind the router, the DNS is not exactly working well, right? So they go to Google, and they redirect you to Google without any problem. But then they have the possibility of changing those conversions, right? The DNS conversion. So they do that with specific banks, right? So they go to Bank of Brazil, and instead of going to the real Bank of Brazil, they go to a fake Bank of Brazil. Why do they do that? Because then once you have a botnet of infected routers, then you sell DNS redirections to people willing to do phishing. So if you're a client, right, then you set up a phishing site for Bank of Brazil, then you go to the botnet owner and says, okay, could you redirect all of your routers Bank of Brazil DNS routing to my fake site? So then all of those people behind the router, they go to bankofbrazil.com, writing it, not a bad link, a real link, and then they'll be redirected to the fake website. So you can see an example of an advertisement. It's not very expensive. If you look at this, it's 1,000 reais per week. That works out like $250 per week. That's not a lot. I mean, if you have a phishing site and you manage to have true DNS redirections to your fake site, you can make that with a couple of customers, a couple of victims. So that's not really bad. And it's very good for the botnet owner. If you have a bunch of infected botnets, a bunch of infected routers with this system, then you can sell all those redirections pretty quickly, very easily. Here's another example. Again, the same. Pretty much the prices are very similar. They call it KL DNS Banker. So it's a DNS redirection system for infected routers. That's, again, something very novel. We've only seen it in the Portuguese-speaking underground, and it's a clear way of monetizing an infected router. So if you infect a router, how do you make money of it? Well, you can install a DNS redirection system. Other than that, what have we seen? The Portuguese underground and the Russian underground, very active in trying to own routers and own mostly routers. In the rest of the undergrounds, like this is an example of the English underground, right? There's a lot of interest in owning, but more in the knowledge side. They want to know how, right? This is using exploits to own Netgear routers, using exploits to exploit printers, but there's no clear monetization why. It's more of, I want to hack it because I can, as opposed to, I want to hack it because it will make me money. So once you own a printer, what do? You reboot it. I don't know what. It's very limited, that the amount of stuff that you can do with a remote printer. You can print stuff, right? Hello, but it's not really the focus of these undergrounds. These undergrounds have not found yet a way of making money off of those infections. So they focus more on the knowledge, on the how to hack. Um, this is a interesting one, right? On the English speaking underground, with a router scan, it scans the whatever IP range that you want. It scans for a router, and it tries to see which ones may be exploitable or not. So you see which routers are online, and then it tries to check with usernames and passwords. Is it useful? It's marginally useful. I mean, I think that this shows an interest by the hackers for owning routers, but there is no clear monetization plan behind. So you own the router, username and password, and after that, I don't know, you're on your own. So there's no clear monetization. There's no clear why. Why would you do this? I'm not sure what a hacker would do with these owned routers. You have to infect them somehow, but the infection is separate from the intention of owning them, which is the only thing that is shown in these undergrounds. This is an interesting one. This apparently was a Portuguese guy, and he was advertising on the English underground and the Portuguese speaking and Spanish speaking undergrounds. And he made, apparently, I haven't been able to test, but the advertisement is selling a tool that will look whole IP ranges for a specific device. In this case, it's an HP OfficeJet Pro. It will look for it, and if it finds one, it will try to connect automatically with username and password, right? Again, it's a way of detecting the devices online. Is it useful for them? It's marginally useful. I mean, it shows interest. It shows that people want to own these printers. With what intent? I couldn't say. There's no clear monetization plan. There's no way of making money off of those infections immediately with these tools. Again, lots of interest, right? We see in the Spanish-speaking underground, somebody was doing Google Dork to find online refrigeration systems, like industrial refrigeration systems that were open. In this one, you use that Dork, you get into a refrigerator system. What do you do with that? I have no idea. You can lower the temperature or up the temperature. I don't know. Marginally useful. Again, it shows interest. It doesn't show actual intent. The Arabic-speaking underground is pretty much the same, right? Very low sophistication. In this one, this is a translation, right? The image is the original, but the rest is a translation. It's pretty much telling you that there are tutorials on how to break into cameras. But again, it doesn't say what to do with them. If you find a good camera, then you'll be able to look at a swimming pool, right? Okay, no, there's no monetization plan. Way, way, way different than that Russian plan trying to break over, packetize them, and sell channels like Netflix. Completely different environment. This one is just the technical how to. This is how you try to break a camera, period. That's where they stop. Another one there, right? This is a whole translation. How to hack, penetration cameras, how to do penetration testing on online cams. Okay, marginally useful, not really a show of intent. So what we're saying here is that these people do have, or they're amassing the knowledge, they have the interest to start attacking IoT devices, all sorts of devices. There's interest in a lot of devices. We're seeing mostly routers and cameras, but also all sorts of very strange devices, right? Every time that there's a new vulnerability on X device, somebody will try to create a tutorial on how to own it. But in reality, hackers do not try to attack just because they can, right? It's good to try and attack just because you can once, but you're not going to keep attacking if there's no way of making money out of it. And what we're seeing is that they are developing, mostly in Russia, in the Russian underground, they are developing very clear monetization plans for making money off of infected routers. Same path, a little bit behind, it's on the Brazilian underground. They have created some money, some monetization plan for making money off of routers also. The rest of the undergrounds, completely behind as to what pertains to attacking routers. They know how, they're sharing how, they are technical enough to know what kind of attacks can be performed, but they have not figured out any monetization plan. Therefore, hackers from those environments, we can only assume that they're trying to attack just for kicks, just for fun, but we don't see any concerted effort that is going to be successful in the long term unless they find a real clear monetization plan. This is my bottom line. So you have routers and other devices, they can and they will be attacked. So if you own a sizable amount of them, you have to start devising a plan in order to protect them. They will be attacked. There is a clear intent. There is a clear monetization plan to make money off of those attacks. Therefore, those attacks will keep going and will keep increasing as other hackers know how to make money off of those. Your Barbie dolls, I think they're safe for the moment. Thank you. Dziękuję bardzo.